you would have expected a war horse. I mean, if he was going to be the kind of king that the people wanted, you would have expected a war horse. Strong, powerful steed with a strong, powerful king riding upon it who would lead an army into battle, like King David, or maybe like Judas of Maccabee or Simon Maccabee, revolutionaries in Israel's history who took up arms and led a revolt against Israel's oppressors. You would have expected a war horse if he was going to be that kind of king. But he's not that kind of king. He didn't come on a war horse. What did he come on? A donkey. He came riding on a donkey, of all things, a symbol of lowliness, a symbol of humility. He did this in order to fulfill the prophecy from the Old Testament prophet Zechariah. Here it is. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Look, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, on the foal of a donkey. Jesus is making a powerful statement as he makes his victory parade into Jerusalem for this final week of his earthly life. He is, in fact, the king, the Messiah, the one that they have been waiting for, but he will not be the kind of king that the world expects. His power, his strength will be on display in a radically different way than any other kingdom in this world. But he's not just telling us what kind of king that he's going to be. This kind of humble king who, rather than using force and violence to kind of get his way, will give of himself in this act of self-giving love. He's not only telling us what kind of king by riding on a donkey, he's also telling us who he will be a king for in this act of riding on a donkey. And this is the part that I think a lot of us don't realize. I think when we hear this story, we understand that, oh yeah, this is about humility. This is about lowliness. But here's the other part of Zechariah that is really important if you go on and read in verse 10. Go ahead and put that up there for me. The next one. He will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall command peace to the nations. Peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. They were expecting a king who would be king of Israel, a king of their particular tribe, their particular people, God's covenant people. But what Jesus is saying, even in the act of riding on a donkey, before all of the action that is to unfold in the rest of this week, is that he is in fact the king for the Jewish people, but he is also a king for all the nations. That's what he's demonstrating, that he is a king. I mean, it's like Pastor Sarah said. I love the way that this just kind of worked out, that we heard that greeting this morning. But this is the vision of God's kingdom. It's not just for a particular ethnicity or tribe, but it's for every tribe, every tongue, every language will gather around the throne, that he will be lifted up, as he'll go on to say later in John, and all the people will be gathered to him. What kind of king? He is a king who will come with humility and who will lay down his life in love. And who's he a king for? He is a king for everybody, all the nations. And just in case we missed that, and just in case the people that day waving the palm branches missed it, and they did, and we do, John gives us a unique detail in his telling of the triumphal entry that makes this more explicit. Here's what he says. Now, among those who went up to worship for the festival, and that is for Passover, among those who went up to worship for the festival were some Greeks. They came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and they said to him, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus." It's an important detail. Is that registering for you? The Jewish Passover, one of the most important festivals for the Jewish people. John tells us now there were some Greeks, some Gentiles, some foreigners, outsiders, who also came to the festival, were drawn by curiosity to the festival, but not just to the Jewish festival. Why are they there? Who do they want to see? Jesus. It's the Sunday school answer. Right, Sandy? If you don't know the answer, just say Jesus. That's right. They're drawn to Jesus. There's an attractional quality to Jesus, and these Greeks are drawn to him. This is John's way of emphasizing what I just told you, that the kind of king that Jesus will be, this kingdom is for Jews and Gentiles. He is the one who will bring peace and reconciliation among the nations. They come to Philip because Philip is the only disciple who has a Greek name, and because he's from a Gentile town, Bethsaida. So maybe they just felt like there was kind of a natural connection there. And Philip goes to Andrew and says, "There's some Greeks here who want to see Jesus. What should we do?" They talk about it. Andrew and Philip then go and tell Jesus. And it's kind of an interesting thing that happens next, because you would have expected that maybe Jesus would say, "Wonderful. Bring them on over. I'd love to speak with them." But he says something kind of strange, doesn't he? Instead, what he says to the disciples is, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified." The hour has come. What hour? And for the Son of Man to be glorified, what does that mean? The hour has come. If you've been reading through John's gospel, have you noticed that all through the story, let's go back to where we began our series together with the wedding at Cana. Do you remember that in John chapter 2? All along the way, Jesus has been giving glimpses of God's glory, the Father's glory. It's come through different signs that he's done. There's been 7 signs. The first sign was turning the water into wine. The last sign, the most climactic, we heard last Sunday, which is raising Lazarus from the dead. But all along the way, when Jesus is performing these signs, the disciples and others, including his mother, others close to him, keep coming up and saying to him, "Is it time? Time to kind of show God's glory in all of its fullness." And what does Jesus keep saying to them? "The hour has not yet come." No, the hour has not yet come. No, now is not the time. Wait. And here we are now with this triumphal entry into Jerusalem, John chapter 12, and Jesus says to the disciples, "The hour has come." It's time. Can you imagine their excitement? Andrew and Philip, I don't know, are some of the other disciples there too? Maybe at this point he's talking to the crowd as well. I'm not ever really clear when he's also kind of going over and talking to the crowd or including them. But imagine their excitement that at last, this is what they have been waiting for. And I can imagine their hearts racing, and I can imagine them thinking, "All right, here we go, Jesus, let's do this. Bring your glory. Let's see the explosiveness of it. Let's see the dazzling display of this glory. We're ready for it, Jesus." But then he says this, "Very truly, I tell you," which in the Greek is amen, amen. Very truly. This is the truth. Listen. "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it will remain just a single grain. But if it dies, it will produce much fruit. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, the hour has come. The hour has come for my Father to be glorified. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains a single grain." This is not what we were expecting. Thinking of the men's summit, right? This weekend, you talked about expectations. This is not what we were expecting. Jesus, of course, is talking about himself. He's talking about his own suffering and death. He is talking about the way in which God's glory, the Father's glory, will be most fully displayed. And it is so counter to all the ways that the world understands power and glory. It is upside down. It subverts it all. The Father's glory will be displayed most powerfully and decisively in this moment when Jesus lays down his life, gives of himself on a shameful Roman cross. Unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground and dies, it will not bear fruit. But if it dies, it will bear much fruit. There's a heaviness for Jesus in this. This is a heavy week that we're getting ready to head into. Remember, we talked about it last week. Jesus is not just some messianic robot who doesn't feel. He's fully God. He's fully human. He has all the feels. There's some heaviness in this realization for him. In John's gospel, we don't get a Garden in Gethsemane moment where Jesus sweats blood and cries out, "Not what I want, but what you want." But this is as close as we'll get in John's gospel to that Gethsemane moment when Jesus says, "Now my soul is troubled." He's not just saying it, he means it. My spirit is heavy. What shall I say to the Father? Save me from this hour? I bet he wanted to say that. No. It is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. It's not what we expect. And yet, this is how love brings victory over sin and death and the powers of the darkness. There's a promise in it for you and for me that he will do this willingly. Jesus will do this willingly for you and for me. This is what love looks like. It gives itself away. He'll do this for us. But there's also a call and an invitation, and we're not hearing what Jesus is saying if we don't hear that as well. And here it is. As we begin Holy Week together, here's the invitation. This is for you. Whoever loves their life will lose it. But whoever hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. For if you are my servant, you will follow me. And where I am, there my servant will be also. And my Father will honor my servants. Here's the invitation. If you love your life, in other words, if you try to hold on to your life, that's what he's saying. If you try to cling to your life, the life that you want, your own plans, your own selfish agenda, your own ambitions, if you try to hold on to it, you will lose it. But if you let it go, if you release it, if you hate your life, he's not saying like self-loathing, like beat yourself up. If you hate your life in this world, he's saying if you let go of your life, of your need to try to be in control, of to try to get your own way, of to have life work out the way that you want it to work out, if you let that go, if you lose that, then you will keep life. You will find abundant life, life in me that begins here and stretches into eternity. And you will be where I am. Here's the invitation this week. Jesus will make this journey to Golgotha, to the cross, to the tomb, and then ultimately he'll be raised from the grave, but you can't get to the bright hope of Easter without first going through the cross. There is no other way. I wish there was. And Jesus is saying that if you want to be with me, if you want to be my follower, you got to come with me. And we die with him, only that we might also be lifted up and raised with him. Here's what I'm wondering this morning, friends. What in you today needs to die? Can't get to resurrection without the cross. Unless a grain of wheat is buried and it dies, it will just stay a single grain. What in you needs to die today? Here's another way to ask it. What do you need to let go of today? What are you carrying? What are you holding on to? For me, often I know that the thing that God is calling me most to release is the very thing that I most do not want to release. Maybe it's a plan that you have for yourself or for your kids or for your family. Maybe it's a failure from the past that you're continuing to carry or regret. Maybe it's a worry about the future. Maybe for you it's a hurt today. Maybe a resentment. So often the things that we hold on to us, hold us captive. And when we learn to release them and let go, we realize that we're setting a prisoner free, and that prisoner is us. Some of you are carrying some heavy things. I know what that's like. Jesus knows. What if today was the day that you laid it down? Turned it over. Bury it. And leave it behind. As a poet put it, for the blessing of God comes in the going and in the letting go. For God so loved the world that he let go of his own son, that Jesus so loved us that he let go of his own life in order that he might give us the strength to do the same. I want to invite you into something this morning. And if you've been around Trinity, we've actually done this. We did this a few years ago. But I want to give you, I felt like it was meaningful then. I'm hoping that it's meaningful today. But a few years ago in the winter of 2023, I had the opportunity to go on a little mini sabbatical. And I spent a week out in Estes Park in the mountains, which was amazing. And in that time, it was really coming through a really, really hard season in my life. And I felt like in order for me to be able to move forward, I needed to let go of some things. That there were things that I was carrying that were preventing me from being able to step into the new thing that God wanted to do in my life, into ministry here for me as your pastor. And so on the last day of that retreat, I went and I got some sunflower seeds because it's winter in Estes Park, and what else are you going to find, right, other than sunflower seeds? And I sat in the living room of my little cabin in the mountains, and I took those seeds and I named in the presence of God as I held each of those seeds in my hand, whatever it is that I was holding that was keeping me from moving forward. Some of it was relationships. Some relationships where there had been some hurt. Some of it was some stuff from my past, some of my own feelings of insecurity and failure. Some of it was my worry, especially for our church. What's going to happen? How are we going to move forward and get through this? But it was such a gift for me to be able to do that. And there was something that was deeply moving for me to physically take a seed and lament before God and actually bury it into the soil. A kind of letting go. For our last song today, we're just going to give space where you don't have to do this, but I would invite you to do it. Some of us, I think, will feel really compelled to do this, where you can come up and you can take as many seeds as you want. I've got a whole nother bag of these things. Missing one bowl. Here it is. And you can take your time and just hold whatever it is that you're carrying today, whatever you need to let go, and then you can put it in the dirt. And I pray that for you, this would be maybe a physical way of God helping you to release, to turn over, to give over to Him. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, unless it dies, it will remain a single seed. But if it dies,